Okay, right. So, what we are discussing in today's session about PMO, right? So, which is called Project Management Office, we call it as.
Project Management Office.
Yeah, PMO, we call it as Project Management Office, right? So, Project Management Office is what are we discussing in today's session? Because as we know, there are different knowledge areas followed by the stages of project management we know, but normally we see this in the real environment wherein there are a lot of projects which are involved in it, isn't it? Right, so there are a lot of
Right.
projects which are involved in it, uh, group of projects which normally we comes under program management, etc.
Right.
But whereas this we see from the organizational point in view, there must be a centralized structure which has to be standardized these projects that is required. So this because this PMO is something not specified for a particular project, because project management office means which majorly centralized and as well as standardize the management process of the projects whichever are working under any organization. This is nothing
Mm.
to do with any organization as separate. This is nothing to do with technology, nothing to do with domain. Because project can be of any domain, project can be of any technology, project can be of any customer. So PMO is something generally will be there, which majorly centralizes and as well as standardizes the management process. So PMO responsibility is to centralize and standardize management process in any of the organization. Is it clear to you, Dylan? Right. In any of the
Yes.
organization. So this is not something exclusive related for any of the projects. So whatever the project we are working on, whatever the projects we are working within the organization, we require some standard, we require some procedure to, yeah, we require some procedure and as well as process to standardize all that. So for that, generally, this PMO is being used for. Now, if you see the functionalities as well as the kind of formats of PMO when they're organizing and managing all these, normally we will be dividing this into three different categories. One is supportive, second is controlling, third is directing. One is supportive,
Controlling.
second is controlling, the third
And
is directive, right? So these are the three different formats of activity which being a PMO will be followed. Okay, now when we talk about supportive, what is exactly supportive stands for? Supportive is nothing but for any of the project or projects, whatever the kind of policies, methodologies, procedures, as well as the kind of templates we are using to work on any of the project. That is what generally we call it as supportive, means whatever the relevant information relating to a project to support, that's what we call it as supportive stands for. Right, so supportive means what if, for example, we are developing an application for one of the banking client, we should understand what kind of policies, an organization consists of. I'm talking about organizational policies. At the same time, we need to understand the methodologies. For example, you want to develop the project. Are we going for any waterfall model? As an example, I'm giving, right? So which methodology are we using? Are we using waterfall model or V model? Are we going for agile or combinations? So normally this is depends on multiple factors. This is depends on the kind of budget which was allocated for the project. Depends on the kind of timelines what we have. Depends on the expertise what the team is having. Depends on the complexity of the project. Whatever the methodology we want to use will be varied. So especially when we are talking about supportive as a concept, which majorly defines about different policies, methodologies, followed.
Okay, so policies and procedures, they would have definitions on when to use waterfall, V model, or
Not
agile.
only that, not only because policies and procedures are not only let us know when to use,
Mhm.
policies and procedures of the organization, from the organization, because to have a value addition to the project, every organization, for example, an organization is a CMM level company, right? CMM level. So when we talk about CMM level organization, the kind of quality standards we want to use, the kind of procedure we require to follow to provide solutions for them will be something different than others. Yes, sir.
Mhm. Yes.
Right? It will not be the same in all the cases. This is something different when we are comparing this with other areas. Agree or not? Right, Dylan?
Right.
Right? So that is point number one. Second, methodologies, because there is nothing to do with policies and procedures. Methodology means, let's say you got a customer wherein you want to develop an application which is something like core banking kind of, for example.
Mhm.
Now, if you want to develop a core banking application to your customer, it's not only knowing about the procedures, standards, all that. What kind of methodology is really suitable matters. Am I right?
Mhm.
For
Right.
example, sometimes customer want you to deliver the project at a time, at once. In a single time, customer is expecting you to deliver.
Right.
Sometimes customer want you to deliver project on phase wise due to different reasons. So there are a lot of considerations, lot of aspects will be considered to choose the right methodology. Means either we need to go for the traditional practices of application development, or do we require to use agile model or something, etc., etc. On what basis depends on multiple areas. What are those? First aspect, we see the timelines, how much timelines customer has given us to develop the project. Again, this timelines depends on the business need and urgency which customer has. Point number one. Second, how much budget it was allocated. Assume that the budget what is allocated might be sufficient for you to use waterfall and traditional practices, not agile. Because if you require agile people, you need to spend more. Assume that we doesn't have that much budget to support. Right? For example, you require some agile coaches or scrum masters to deploy, to create an environment of agile. Sometimes we don't have the provision. Understood or not? Dylan, right? Sometimes we don't have the provision. So these are the practical difficulties. Sometimes some projects require some complexity, has some complexity, sorry. So based on that, we need to make some changes into the existing one. So supportive is completely focusing on the kind of policies, methodologies followed by the templates. Some time back, I have given you some templates last week, right? So some templates I have given. As far
Right.
as the project management itself is concerned, we have our own plans. Like project management plan will be as separate. At the same time, scope. When you talk about the scope of the project scope document will be different. Project vision document will be as separate. right? So there are different documentations and templates which normally we use in real time. So what kind of templates are we going to use, right? So all these things comes under the supportive part. Understand? Clear?
Yes.
Right? This is the first point. Second point, we talk about controlling part. Controlling part means which majorly focuses on how we need to manage the project, means how are we going to control the project. That is what we have to see. For example, what kind of software are we using for the project, right? At the same time, what kind of tools are we using to develop the project? So not only that, what kind of compliance standards do we require to follow to complete this? Because for some organization want a licensed software to be used, not the open source tools in any of the area. Because normally what we do whenever we are working on project, if whatever the area, if we feel that is this area is not so important, normally we go for open source tools, right? Because we don't require much need of buying licenses for that, right? Because it's a cost matter. So normally what we use, of course, we don't go for trial versions. We go for open source tools. Some organizations doesn't allow you to do that, right? Because some clients say that whatever that you are using as a part of the project, that must be under the licensed software. No open source tools are allowed. In some conditions, I'm saying, not in all the levels. So here is a question. We'll have a question, right? Why don't we use open source tools? Because open source tools has a provision where we can do it for zero cost, right? So open source tools, we don't need to pay anything. Simply we can use it. But there is an underlying concept or underlying aspect matters. Sometimes open source tools, even though product has been given by an X company, they may not be providing all the features what are relevant and relating for the project to use it, right? So they may have some customization. For some point in time, they may put it something, some price kind of stuff, or they make it, they can make that services premium after that. But prior to planning of the project, normally we have not calculated any cost because it's a open source tool. But all of a sudden during the project, you have identified that it went to premium account.
Mhm.
Understand, Dilla, right?
Right.
So organizations never encourage any kind of open source tools or any kind of what we call open source tools and all everything will be used. Always they prefer you to work on the uh, real applications, licensed versions, all that. But nowadays situation has changed to an extent possible. We are all cloud accounts. Every application is a cloud application. That's how the transformation was taken place. So whenever this was transferred to the cloud application, the advantage here is that it's a cloud application where we don't require to take any licenses as separate, pay-per-use kind of whatever the services you are using in that particular cloud environment. We can pay only for that. We don't require to pay any other things else apart, right? So this is what generally we context is. So how are we going to control the project and what kind of controlling measures are we taking to make it standardize? The projects standardize is all comes under the controlling part. Now the third one is called about directive. Directive means what are the principles, whatever the kind of results, what is that we see in the project and who is responsible for all that. At the same time, we need to see the kind of size of the project, right? The type of the projects it is, right? So who is influencing the project to make it completive? right? So all these things comes under the directive part.
Sorry, can you go one more time for directive?
Directive means how to make application successful. What are the key elements to be taken into an account? This is what we call it as directive. Simple.
Mm.
Understood? Clear? Understood or not?
Yes, yes.
Directive means how to make a particular task or a project to make it successful. What measures to be taken for different projects, because projects are different, domains were different, technologies were different, clients of course different. Because he, but end of the day, there is a responsibility which is underlined in that. Am I right or not? Right?
Right.
Responsibility. Who is taken over the responsibility of the results of those particular projects, and in on what context? Because this is all something we have to organize in such a way. It depends on the size of the project it was. Size means complexity I'm talking about.
Mhm.
With high complex, automatically it will be difficult in dealing with. Right? So high complex, all that. And the kind of type of projects means, for example, uh, there will be some projects which are migration projects. Migration means
Right.
you are
Yes.
not developing it right from the beginning. There was an application earlier. There are three kind of, I'll tell you three things. One is applications which are developing right from the scratch, right from zero. We are starting, right? This is one category. Second category, there was an application where you are customizing and you are enhancing existing ones to the existing application. This is point number two. Third category is that there was an existing or legacy systems which were already there. Now from legacy systems to the new application, this data migration and transformation is what generally we are planning. This is what we call it as the third area, third level. Am I right? Understood?
Mhm.
Dylan? Right? Understood or
Yeah.
not? So applications are of different type of, some are only data migration projects, some are legacy data migration from legacy application to the new application. Some applications we are doing customization and adding new things to the existing application only, right? You're not developing any new one. Third category means first point, what I have mentioned you, we are developing an application from the scratch. The reason why we are using frameworks, the reason why, because in order to reduce the complexity of developing an application right from the scratch nowadays, if you see frameworks, I think you might have heard about this, right? Frameworks like Struts framework or Jacksmin, TOGAF, right? So these are the frameworks we are using because of it.
I
I will
heard
tell
about
you,
them, but I never used them.
I will tell you the importance of framework. Let us forget about that. But I'll tell you the importance of framework.
Mhm.
I think you heard about framework, right? You heard about the word called framework, right?
Mhm.
You heard about the word called framework. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes or no? Right? But of course,
Yes.
whatever the type of whatever the type of frameworks, forget, right? You heard about the word called framework. What is framework in project and importance? I'll tell you. Let's say, for example, uh, you are into manufacturing of furniture. Okay. When you are manufacturing a furniture, there were different types of furnitures. You have chairs, you have tables, you have sofas, you have beds, you have other different furniture, right? Which is required for a household to use it. Now, if you say chair, if when you talk about chair or when you talk about a table, I'm talking about dining table or something, dining table. There is a standard size for any table. Am I right or not? There will be a standard size. Depends on shape may vary, but end of the day, standard specifications of a chair to manufacture or a table to manufacture remain constant. Do you agree on that?
Right.
Right? I am talking about height. For example, height of the chair. Either you are buying a plastic chair or you are buying a wooden chair. You see, mostly the size of the chair, height of the chair will be same. Am I right? Yes or no? Right?
Yes.
Second point. Whatever the legs you are installing for that particular chair will also be on the same length. Agreed?
Right.
Yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Second point. Third point. Whatever the chair you are manufacturing, whenever you want to sit, right, on the seat on the chair, that size will also be the same, standard.
Correct.
Handrest also standard. What is changing? Maybe model may change, design may change. But when you're talking about a chair manufacturing, chair has a standard specification of sizes. Do you agree on this, Dylan? Right.
Right.
Now, if you are preparing this as a proto, for example, some kind of frameworks or a prototype, if you keep it ready, being a manufacturer, what is your advantage? Whatever the kind of chair, anyway, you have a you have a prototype, you have a model with you, framework with you now. Immediately, easily, you can manufacture the chair. Am I right or not? Right? The kind of wood you are using, or the kind of design, what is that you are using, might be different. But standard specification of a chair remains constant. Agree or not?
Correct.
Simple, right?
Right.
So what is that it is happening? Being a manufacturer, it is reducing you the complexity of designing the basic structure again and again. That is not required. For example, you are doing false ceiling, right? False ceiling size, height of the false ceilings, there is a standard specification, right? You don't need to say to any person who is doing false ceiling, right? So if you say that false ceiling depends on the height of the height inside the room. False ceiling, how much how much length the false ceiling height should be adjusted to the false ceiling and all. Those guys will do it, and they do the framing. For that, you don't require to say anything. What is that you have to say? How the design of the false ceiling should looks like, right? Do you want any kind of carving kind of stuffs, or you want to have any kind of grading, right? Those things you have to explain. Remaining things you don't need to explain.
Mhm.
Am I right or not? Understood, Dylan?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You don't require to tell him the length and all that, right? So because that is standard structure. So the same way, whenever we are going to develop any project, there are some standard specifications we use it. वो हम बोलते framework.
Mhm.
So this framework will reduce your effort of working on the project to 70%. 30% work, वो it will be taken because 30% that structure remains same. That framework is taken care of that 30% work. Remaining 70% is what based on the customer, whatever the tools are we using, technologies, approaches, that is where you are doing, right? So, but rest of the standard specification of an application to design, to develop, that remains forever, constant. Agreed? Yes, sir.
Right.
That's what we call it as frameworks. I think you understood what I'm saying.
Right.
Clear to you? No? Dilip?
Yes.
Right. So this is what, yeah, coming back to the point. When we're talking about the directive is that, right? So how are we directing to make this project to be completed in what way? Because there are different type of projects we have. There are different type of projects. Not only that, there are different type of technologies we may be using to develop the project. So depends on that how it is directive and all. So these are the three major areas a project management office will be used majorly. Clear to you, Dila? Understood, right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the reason why whatever are we talking about supportive, right? So supportive and all everything will have an low level control. This is comes under low level control, supportive. because it is majorly focusing on the policies, methodologies, the kind of templates, etc. Controlling will have mid-level control. This have mid-level control. That's what we talk about controlling. Directing means high-level control. Do you understand this?
Yes.
So
And with high level control from PMO.
high-level control of PMO. Because when we talk about the PMO as a responsible person, PMO as a responsible person, directive principles majorly focusing on the high-level aspects of the project.
Got it.
Right, high level aspects. When it is high level projects, then we are going for directive principles means how to make the project successful. That's what generally it was. Okay, this is where generally directive principles are, right? So directive principles, all that. Next, controlling means it's mid level, supportive means low level, because these are common points. For example, if you see policies, procedures, and all everything, those points are common. Those are not something separate, different. Am I right or not? Right?
Right.
Yes or no? Right?
Yes.
Because supportive principles are common. The supportive principles are not something you cannot consider, and you cannot say that these are high level control, because these are the basic things, right? What are the basic things? Methodology, policies, knowing about the policies, knowing about the methodologies, templates. These are the basic things. Second, controlling part. Controlling part, these are all mid-level things. What are mid-level things? What kind of software are we using, right? What kind of tools are we using? These are all something, because this controls to develop the project, right? Controlling, you are making it, it is making for you to use the application to complete and to develop. The third is directive. Directive majorly focusing on the result orientation. Result orientation is the high level one. Understand? Clear?
Mhm.
Is it clear to you?
Yes.
Right?
Right,
So,
Raj.
yeah, these are the three major areas being a project manager, whoever is working as a project manager or who are into project management role should know about the project management office, which is what we generally call it as PMO.
Mhm.
Clear? Right? Now, is it clear to you, Dylan?
Yes.
Right? So this is the one thing. Now, what are the responsibilities generally a project management office follows? Right? That's what I'm explaining. Responsibilities of PMO follows are as follows. The first point is to, yeah, sorry, is to manage interdependencies among projects, followed by not only projects, programs, and portfolios. Understood? This is what the first one. Because PMO office means project management office responsibility. One of the key responsibilities to manage the interdependencies. What are all the interdependencies which are involved when we are working on the projects, programs, portfolios, and all everything is what the first one. Second, helping in providing resources. Helping in providing resources, right?
Now, these could be manpower or tools.
Anything, right? So providing resources can be, it can be manpower, it can be infrastructure, anything it can be.
got it.
Resource is not only manpower, right? Resource can be infrastructure either also, right?
Right.
Resource
Okay.
can be infrastructure. For example, whatever the infrastructure is needed for us to develop the project, that also called as resource. Yes, sir. Right. That also called
Yes.
resources, not only the manpower. Right. So this is also one of the key element, right? Helping in providing resources also one of the key element. Next, the third point is to monitor compliance with organizational processes. This is also because what are the compliance standards do we require to follow, right? So all these things and all everything comes under this category.
So just one question.
Hmm.
Compliance with organizational process.
Hmm.
Let's say I'm a vendor, or sorry, I'm a vendor such as IBM, and or it doesn't matter. It could be client or could be vendor.
I'm
What?
not clear about your question. Can you come again?
Yeah. So monitor compliance. So this PMO, it can be on client side or can be on vendor side.
Ah, yes. PMO anywhere the same. Because see,
Right.
if, for example, you're developing a solution for a banking client, they have a PMO office, right?
Right.
From the vendor side, because you are the solution provider, you are for an IT services side, you have your own PMO, right?
Right.
Yes or no, right?
Correct.
So when you are providing a solutions to the customer, you need to understand the compliance standards of the customer, what they were expecting. Point number one. For example, you are a PMO for a banking, for a bank, a financial institution, right? You will be delivering what kind of compliance standards one has to follow to complete project successfully. Do you got my point clear to you?
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Do you understand this? This
Yes.
right? This is one more point. Next, provide templates, right? Whatever the templates like work breakdown structure templates, right? Communication management templates, right? So whatever the templates required for a project to develop, all these things will be provided. This is what generally we talk about templates and all everything. Next, we have to provide guidance for project governance. That is also required. Provide guidance for project governance. Now, can you tell me what is meant by governance process? What does it mean? What is meant by governance?
No, I didn't understand. I was going to ask you this.
Yeah, see, governance nothing but it's an administrative activity. For example, you want to develop a project, right? So when you want to develop a project, there are a lot of elements to be governed. There are a lot of elements to be focused. There are a lot of elements to be taken into an account and control. Am I right? So how
Right.
you are effectively administrating the activities of the project management, वो हम बोलते governance process. Administration, effective administration is called governance. Do you understand,
Okay. Got it.
Dylan?
Yes.
Effective administration of group of activities for a particular project or an organization is called governance. Do you understand?
And can you give me the examples of a few activities?
I'll tell you. You're developing an application to your customer, a banking customer, wherein banking customer is a CMM level organization. Let me put you this way.
Mhm.
It's not only a solution you are developing to the client according to their requirements, but compliance standards you have to meet. Means whatever the licenses, softwares, what customer is expecting you to follow, you have to follow that. That is point number one. Point number two, whenever customer want you to deliver a piece of work, we have to ensure that it has to be completed within the timelines and we have to submit it. This is second point. Third point, there is some documentation which customer is expecting you to complete and deliver, but that should meet the standards of CMM. CMM level standard type of documentation is what customer expectation is. So that you are ensuring and reaching this on time to the customer. This is what you talked about governance is.
Mhm.
Understand? Clear?
Right.
Understood? Governance. Governance means the activities of the project, the elements, whatever you are taking, and you are ensuring customer that you are delivering something, or the activities you are performing in the project should be within the standards as well as the structure of the project within that. That is the reason why that is what we call it as good governance. Understand? Clear? There
Yes.
should not be any kind of delays. There should not be any kind of dissatisfaction level over this solution what you are developing. Because see, developing a solution is not only the key element.